Mitch, I know it's first-year head coach. Is Saturday's loss the toughest you've had to endure?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just from a standpoint of, you know, how well the guys battled back in that second half, and just, man, it was obviously physically exhausting for the kids. It was mentally exhausting for the kids. It was just, man, it was what college football is all about. That game was what college football is all about. And it was an awful lot of fun. But to be that close, for something that big, because that was, 24th ranked team in the country comes in your place, and it's your last time to play at home. And and some things to get to play the spoiler and to be that close to spoil it. And then come up short. It was heartbreaking for those kids. It was, I had to sit outside for a minute before I came in the locker room to figure out what I wanted to tell them, because you don't have the words in those type situations that's going to make them feel any better. But after watching it Sunday, there's a lot of things that we can learn from. A lot of penalties and mistakes and some dumb things like that. But from an effort standpoint, golly, man, those guys, they fought their brains out. And, but it was very gut-wrenching.
Asked Hunter when he was in here about second-half adjustments offensively, and he said really wasn't anything to do, just kind of do what you're supposed to do, more or less.
Yeah, we didn't adjust anything. I tell you, my thoughts on the game overall was it was a tale of two halves. I thought defensively, I thought we played good enough to win, especially in that first half. I really did. I thought we played tremendous in the first half. The only thing I told them at the break at halftime was, hey man, you ought to have kind of a little burr in your fanny, because they've gone for it on every fourth down. They've literally had no problems. It wasn't even a thought process on fourth down. They're just going for it. And if that doesn't light your fire, then something's wrong with you. But offensively, for lack of better terms, there was a come to Jesus with the offensive guys, because that was probably the worst first half of football I've ever seen in my life, especially that I've ever been associated with my name on it in my life. It was the most mentally dead, physically unemotional, worthless 30 minutes of football I've ever been associated with. We did not play very well. We didn't do anything very well. We weren't thinking. There was just little things that came up during the game that we didn't do very well. So at halftime, it had nothing to do with adjustments or anything like that. It was just, hey man, you guys got to start playing. You got to get some juice about you, and that's what we did in the second half.
But a 180. That it didn't even look like the same team from the very first play.
And that was what I was very proud about, was when we got back on the field, seeing the way that they responded. It was very encouraging, especially when you take into the fact, all of a sudden Tony Mays, he gets, two unsportsmanlike conducts, and he's out. And you throw Ben Looper. You got Ben Looper at tackle, who's played like 2 snaps before that game, and you got Quan Stallworth, a true freshman, and they're going against one of the best fronts that we've played, the best front we've played to up to this point. I thought it was a tremendous job, just kind of a gut check for those guys, and they responded very well. And then on the flip side, though, the problem was I think the defense had ran like 76 plays in the first half, so they were beat to death. They were beat to death, I think they ran 123 plays the whole game, and by the time we got to the second half, they were just done. And in that second overtime, Boone looked at me and said, hey, man, if you score, go for 2. He said, we're done. We have nothing left in the tank. You either win it or lose it right now. And obviously we didn't get to that point.
Last play, anything you regret about that?
Calling it.
Is that it?
Yeah, calling it. It's one of those situations where we had kind of shot all our bullets, and I'd run the sister to that play I'd ran before, and we underthrew it, and it was wide open. The throwback to the quarterback was wide open. As a matter of fact, it kind of freaked the O-lineman out, because there was nobody to block. They were pulling downfield, and they were like, hey, Coach, there was nobody there. And I said, yeah, tell me about it. But when we ran that play, all I was looking for was that pass off of it, and it was there. And But if the guy who intercepted it, if he doesn't intercept it, there's two more that's going to intercept it behind him after watching it on film. It was just just a bad play call because I didn't give the guys a chance, at the end. But at the same time, we'd kind of thrown everything we had. I mean, we'd thrown the kitchen sink at them. At that point, it was, hey, let's try to hit them on this. And if we don't, then we'll try to play a little bit of ball with them.
You were talking about giving your guys a chance. Two guys that did give you a chance, Roman Clay and Paul Rice.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about what they've been to this team this year?
Yeah, both of them, I tell you, the thing about both of those guys is, leading up to this year, both of them have just kind of been solid players for us, not anything special, just kind of hand the ball to Roman every once in a while, and he'd get you some tough yards, and Paul, he'd make a catch here and there, and then all of a sudden they come in there, to this year, especially Paul, because this is last year, and man, he's been one of our most solid players, and when I mean solid, I mean just, knock on wood, has not missed a game due to injury, anything like that. He's made every start. Man, he's always a guy who just seems to get that extra yard when you need it. You're 3rd and 5, you throw it to him at 4, and he makes a dude miss and gets 6. And has just been an outstanding player. And then Roman, man, golly, bless his heart. I see him after the game. He's wrapped head to toe in ice. His shoulders are busted up, and all of that. And when you got a running back who's sitting there with both shoulders wrapped in ice, that usually means they did a really good job of running behind the pads. And the first score that we made in the first overtime, I mean, that run shouldn't have worked. We were outnumbered in the box, and we had a safety sitting there, and he just blasted right through the safety for the score. He's just doing a tremendous job of running hard, and awfully proud of both of those guys. Roman Clay was our team's player of the week, offensive player of the week, that we just kind of award in-house, and awfully proud of both of those guys.
When you talk about the second half effort, how do you get that to bleed over against the number 1 team in the country? I
don't know. I think, our theme, we always do themes, and our theme this week is just juice. We got to come with the juice. We got to play like we did in the second half for 4 quarters, especially this week. But, to me, I told the team this. I said, look here. I said, most people in our situations, they get to that last game, they take their toys, they go home, they pack it in, they're done. I said, that ain't our style. That ain't what we're going to do. And, and I told them that our word of the week was going to be juice, because that's what we're going to have all week. We're going to have the best practices we've ever had. We're going to go down there in all intentions of spoiling their number 1 seed into the playoffs. And we're going to take all of the able bodies that we have. It may not fill up one bus, but we're going to take all the guys that we have that are still able to play. And we're going to go down there and give them our best shot. And but the challenge is going to be, what we have to do is we have to play a full 4 quarters like we did the second 2 quarters of last week, especially this week, because, man, what a great opportunity we have. The last game of the season, and just coincidentally, it winds up being versus the number 1 team, not in your conference but in the land. That makes for an awful lot of fun.
A lot of playmakers on that team. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about Eli Jenkins, what that defense has to offer?
Yeah, there's more than you can even run down. Eli Jenkins, man, tremendous athlete, tremendous arm talent, makes very good decisions, runs that offense well. I mean, just super efficient. Offensively, they put you in a bind because they can bring in power sets, and 12 personnels and 21 personnels and things like that, and they can run it down your face, but then they'll take that same personnel and spread you out with those same guys. Or then they can go into a 4-wide, 10 personnel set, and they've got tall, long receivers that can run and go get it. They play with an awful lot of confidence. Their offensive line, are big dudes. They're not necessarily the best-looking guys that I've seen on tape, but they're big. They're big. And they play. They're just nasty. They can move bodies and things like that. And then defensively, I thought last week was the best defensive front that I've faced up to this point, and it was up to this point, because these cats that we're watching on tape right now, they're in their own different stratosphere. They're big in the middle. They have these 2 DNs that they'll line up and they'll stand up and they play them real wide, and those dudes just come off the rock. And what they do is when you're in situations to throw the ball, those DNs, they're going to push the pocket back. Your quarterback's going to have to step up, and then they've got these two big pluggers in the inside that don't allow your quarterback to do anything and go anywhere. They're awfully talented on the back end, but anytime you've got a front like they do, a front seven like they do, I could be playing in the back end, and I'm going to make a play because your quarterback's going to be running for his life the whole time. So, man, they've got so many challenges. I mean, that's the reason why they're the number one team in the land, is because everywhere you look, there's a challenge. There's a challenge. Their secondary, there's a challenge. Their linebackers, there's a challenge. Their defensive front, there's a challenge. In the special teams, there's they got these kick returners that can just explode the game wide open, and but on the flip side of that, that's what makes it so fun, because if you go down there, and I think our biggest thing is we've got to be close come the fourth quarter, because I told the team, I said, hey man, I think what you've done is you've kind of created an image this past couple of weeks of being the team that won't really go away. And and if we hang around long enough, eventually my kids, they get to saying, hey, maybe this thing will happen, and so I'm hoping that's kind of the game plan is going to that fourth quarter and be close, and then all bets are off, man. You're in the last week of the season versus the number one team in the country, and it's like the playoffs. You just don't ever know what's going to happen.
Katie Humphries is really close to breaking Casey Brockman's record. Does that mean anything to the team right now, and have you guys even thought about it?
No, not at all. I don't even think he's thought of it. He'd tell you right now, and I think he already has. He'd tell you right now that he would trade a lot of these close games, being another touchdown and we win, for any of those accolades. So obviously we'll use it in recruiting. When this is all said and done. But right now our focus is just trying to piece the personnel that we have left and the able bodies that we have left and go give the number one team in the country a run for their money.